On March 8, 2014, the world woke up to news that would baffle aviation experts, haunt families, and grip millions across the globe. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a routine international passenger flight, had disappeared without a trace. 239 people were on board. There was no distress signal, no emergency call, only silence. The disappearance was so sudden and complete that it felt like the plane had simply vanished into thin air. What followed was one of the most extensive and expensive aviation investigations in history, but nearly a decade later, questions still remain unanswered. Flight MH370 was a daily international service operated by Malaysia Airlines. It was supposed to be just another standard journey, departing from Kuala Lumpur International Airport and heading to Beijing Capital International Airport. On board were passengers and crew from 14 different countries. The aircraft itself was a Boeing 777-200ER, known for its reliability and safety. Flight MH370 was a vital part of air traffic monitoring and held the confidence of thousands who boarded it daily. The flight took off at 12:41 a.m. local time and climbed to cruising altitude. Everything seemed normal until it wasn't. Less than an hour after takeoff, all contact with the aircraft was lost. Air traffic controllers noticed that the plane had disappeared from radar screens. The transponder, which transmits data such as speed and altitude, was turned off. No distress signal was ever sent. Malaysian military radar later showed that the plane made a sharp turn westward and deviated from its planned route, something no one could explain. It then continued flying for hours before finally vanishing completely from radar coverage. These developments transformed what was initially believed to be a tragic accident into a global mystery. As news of the disappearance broke, an unprecedented international search and investigation began. Dozens of countries joined forces, pouring resources into the search. Cutting-edge robotics and underwater drones were deployed to scan the depths of the southern Indian Ocean. Satellite data was used to narrow down possible flight paths, and naval ships combed vast swaths of water for any sign of wreckage. It was a race against time. Families waited in agony, clinging to hope, desperate for answers. Despite the massive effort, the ocean offered no clues. The silence of the deep sea was unrelenting. Investigators focused heavily on the plane's communication systems. Internal civil aviation communication logs were reviewed in detail. One of the biggest red flags was the disconnection of tracking systems, which raised serious questions. Was it due to a mechanical failure, or did someone inside the cockpit intentionally disable the systems? These chilling possibilities opened the door to countless theories, from hijacking to sabotage to crew involvement. And yet, no theory could be confirmed. Every piece of data only led to more questions. As the world looked on, international aviation bodies got involved. The International Air Transport Association and civil aviation commissions from several countries collaborated to manage the response. The scale of cooperation was unprecedented. Meetings were held, data was shared, and safety protocols were reevaluated. The tragedy of MH370 was no longer just a Malaysian crisis, it was a global one. Meanwhile, media coverage exploded. News outlets around the world covered every development, every rumor, every shred of new information. The story dominated headlines for weeks. Social media became a hub of theories and speculations. Families of the missing passengers were thrust into the spotlight, their grief and frustration shared by millions. Broadcasts even featured music and periodic alerts, highlighting the growing urgency and emotional weight of the unfolding events. Technical teams delved deep into the aircraft's design and components. The Boeing 777's black stainless steel parts were examined for signs of failure or malfunction. Flight simulations were used to recreate possible scenarios. Tracking systems and satellite handshakes were analyzed to trace the aircraft's final movements. One breakthrough came from Inmarsat satellite data, which indicated the plane's likely path toward the southern Indian Ocean. But even with advanced technology and expert analysis, the wreckage was nowhere to be found. The search faced overwhelming challenges. The Indian Ocean is vast, deep, and largely unmapped. The area suspected to contain the aircraft's remains covered over 120,000 square kilometers. Delays in gathering and interpreting data only made the task harder. By the time search teams reached likely locations, ocean currents may have already scattered any debris. The size and remoteness of the search area turned the mission into one of the most difficult in aviation history. Despite the lack of closure, the disappearance of Flight MH370 left a profound legacy. It forced the global aviation community to confront critical issues in flight tracking and communication. As a direct result of the incident, real-time aircraft tracking systems are now being implemented worldwide. Airlines and regulators have strengthened safety protocols to ensure that no flight can vanish in the same way again. The tragedy led to meaningful changes, but at an unimaginable cost. Today, MH370 remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Families continue to seek answers, clinging to the hope that one day the truth will surface. Investigators and experts remain determined to understand what really happened that night. The world has not forgotten, and it never will. Flight MH370 reminds us of how vast our world is and how much we still don't know. In memory of the 239 people who were lost, and in honor of the relentless search for truth, we continue to ask, what really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370? If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more real-life investigations, aviation stories, and deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments, because every voice matters when seeking the truth.